signing off.
Talent. There's no dearth of homegrown entrepreneurs who have become Indian MNCs and who've been, in fact, championing our, keeping our flag flying high across the world. So therefore, when you have no problem, no dearth of, investors, funds, or talent, what is the missing piece? I think it's the regulatory framework. It's the governments getting their act together, both state and center together, saying, listen, what are the things that we need to address jointly over the next 10 years, if really this life sciences industry has to be given the much needed fillip? I think that's the only missing piece of the puzzle that we need to address. Everything else is in place.
And so you have some magic
yes, in fact,
under your hat.
From my state, because I only represent a state, I am coming up with a world-class pharmacity. I am continuing to grow my vaccine area. I am, of course, continuing to invest in the innovation. Like I said, the points of intersection between IT and biology, I'm continuing to invest in that. I'm continuing to goad investors to come in and invest in these areas. And most importantly, I have created a nice pipeline of talented human resources. All the institutions that Prasad mentioned, IICT, CCMB, we work very closely together with academia, industry, try and bring about a synergy between what the world wants, what the market wants, and what the academia should be doing. So we are doing some things as a state. Of course, there's more scope to improve, and there's expeditious delivery as well that we can do. But I think the larger responsibility lies with the union government in understanding and strategizing that existing ecosystems need to be given the fillip. Race to the bottom is not an answer, because when they launched this whole bulk drug spark scheme recently, Government of India, they were talking about which location would give cheap power and cheap water and cheap land. That is not how you should be looking at this industry. A race to the bottom is not an answer. It is the ecosystem. Where can India really move forward quickly? Because we don't have the luxury of leapfrogging. We have to pole vault. If you really have to, jump a few hoops and start thinking big, you have to pole vault. So you have to nurture your existing ecosystems. You can't be trying to reinvent the wheel and can't be going to places where there's nothing but water, power, and cheap land, and assume that the investor would happily come and invest there. That's not how it's going to work.
Yeah, it's good to see the minister so invested in the whole thing, and also, talking about policy where it's required. Really, your closing comments, sir.
I can't speak for the government, but I'm really happy with what the Honorable Minister is saying. But even from a company's angle, we have to put more capital at risk. We have already conquered the API and generic segments.
Yeah.
The innovation business is not a natural growth of that segment of the business. It's a very different business. The API and generics business, you have large number of small bets. Whereas in innovation, you have a small number of very large bets. It's a very different risk profile. It's a very different business. The skills required are very different and much more involved in creating new science. So it's up to us as entrepreneurs to do the big things. And I think we have some very ambitious entrepreneurs in India, and we will see innovation in the next decade. And we will get there. I'm very confident about that. I think we will close the unfinished agenda in the next decade.
The unfinished agenda. What's on your agenda next then?
No, I think I agree with the minister. Here is a sector which will create a lot of white-collar jobs. And as these will be high-value adding jobs, these will come closer to cities, and leaders which will take a very clear focus on understanding how do we stitch what's called as an ecosystem together between academia, between industrial infrastructure, between startups, and also digital being a horizontal in enabling all this. Those will emerge, as hotspots for, future manufacturing and ecosystems in our country. And we are seeing, closer to Hyderabad, there's a lot of interest. So we see that if more of these happen in our country, because the opportunity is immense, and then we should be doing much more on that.
All right. On that note, thank you all very much for your time, and to all our viewers watching back home. And I hope you've got some good takeaways from this discussion as well. Thanks so much for watching. That's Money Control from Davos. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor.
No dearth of talent. There's no dearth of homegrown entrepreneurs who have been